The U.S. Congress has been working feverishly this week on a budget agreement to keep the government running and avert a partial government shutdown. The debate over legislative priorities comes as President Donald Trump marks his 100 days in office, still looking for congressional approval on one of his biggest campaign promises. VOA's congressional reporter Katherine Gypson has our report.
What follows is my 100-day action plan to make America great again.
As President Trump looks to the budget battle for a win on his biggest campaign promise, funding the 3,200-kilometer border wall with Mexico.
We're building the wall. In fact, it's going to start soon, way ahead of schedule.
But with a price tag in the billions, a border wall will be a tough sell for Republicans and a rallying point for opposition Democrats. And no one is sure if funding for the wall will be a deal breaker for President Trump or just the first step towards a compromise in the form of more immigration funding. Headed in negotiations Monday, the White House was careful not to say.
But I'm not going to start to take things on and off the table with respect to what the president may or may not do.
But memories of the failed effort on health care are still fresh for Republicans, creating more pressure inside the party.
President Trump is not a creature of Washington. He's not someone with a lot of legislative deal-making experience. And so we're sort of seeing this play out on this funding fight.
So, is President Trump on track to make America great again? To help us out with that, we are joined in Washington by VOA White House correspondent Pete Heinlein. Welcome back, Pete.
Thank you. And
VOA congressional correspondent Katherine Gypson, who filed that report for us. It's great to have you both. So, Katherine, I'm going to talk to you first, since you've been covering this candidate Trump even well before he became president.
Right.
How does his actual campaign rhetoric match with what he has done so far at the White House?
Well, if you talk to the Trump voters, as I did in this past election year, a couple of key campaign promises stood out for them. The big one was filling that Supreme Court vacancy, because that's the thing that will have a lasting impact.
So he chalks one up there.
Exactly.
Okay.
He's got that spot filled. Then there's a bigger, more nebulous campaign promise, that Make America Great Again line, which for a lot of voters across the country meant a lot of different things. In some ways, it meant border security, ending illegal immigration. For others, it meant repealing and replacing Obamacare. And in terms of that key campaign promise, we've had a little bit of a rocky start up on Capitol Hill.
Repeal and replace Obamacare on day one, getting rid of Islamic State, not a problem. We've got a secret plan to take care of that. But Pete, clearly there is a difference between what a candidate says on the campaign trail and what he actually does once he's at the White House. Does this 100-day mark mean anything? Is it an artificial construct?
It is an artificial construct, absolutely. And President Trump himself the other day said, it's a lot bigger than everybody's making it. Everybody wants to weigh in and give their opinion on how things are going. But certainly what he said on the campaign trail is a bit different in many respects.
See, part of the reason why I think we make a big deal out of this 100 days is because it's President Trump himself saying at the first 100 days, we're going to win so much, your head's going to spin.
And
right?
He said on the campaign trail, we're going to declare China a currency manipulator. Now that's all gone. He says, no, we don't want to call China a currency manipulator. They're helping us with North Korea, which is a much bigger fish to fry on his foreign policy.
Catherine, I'm wondering, do you agree with that assessment that the 100 days doesn't really matter?
Well, if you look at it from a Capitol Hill perspective, if you look at the bills that have been introduced so far, President Trump had a 100-day contract with the American voter, where he promised to drain the swamp, where he promised to bring in big infrastructure spending, get funding for the border wall, repeal and replace Obamacare. And if you look at all of those key campaign promises, not a one has been fulfilled yet.
Pete, President Trump has no legislative accomplishments to speak of. What has he accomplished, though, in the first 100 days?
He has laid down this strategic lack of strategic patience on North Korea. He has said he doesn't want to have a ground war in Syria after attacking in response to the Syrian chemical weapons attack. So he has a couple things that he can call accomplishments in the foreign policy arena.
Now, to be fair to what Pete Heinlein has to say, the president has had to deal with some pretty weighty issues. I mean, there's Syria, and of course, right now, ratcheting up North Korea.
Right, and coming out of that classified all-members briefing on Capitol Hill, many of the members I spoke to said that it was a very good briefing and that they felt that the president's team really had a handle on getting tough with North Korea, putting those sanctions in place, putting financial pressure, and working with China to try and solve this issue. So it looks like, at least on that front, members on Capitol Hill were happy with the president's approach.
I'm wondering, a question to both of you. How badly has the Russia probe hurt the president's ability to get things done?
You know, that's really where the legislative accomplishments come in. If we don't have legislative accomplishments to cover on Capitol Hill, if we don't have bills and new legislation being introduced, then the attention turns to other issues up on Capitol Hill. And so far, that's been the Russia probe. That's been Devin Nunes headed to the White House, briefing the president on what he's found out. That's certainly sucked up a lot of air on Capitol Hill. And I'm sure it did at the White House as well.
Your thoughts on that, Pete?
That drip, drip, drip every day, a new revelation, has distracted President Trump and his administration from their other agendas, and it's beginning to take its toll.
Michael Flynn has been in the news. Apparently, more evidence that he broke the law by not reporting some of his payments that he received from foreign agents. What's the likelihood of something like that sticking to the president? Is the president able to sort of divorce himself completely from a character like Michael Flynn, who he praised to high heaven early on in the campaign?
I don't think so. He's hoping he can. He's trying to divert attention away. But
what do you think, Catherine?
I think that this constant, as Pete said, the drip drip, where you have a bipartisan consensus. You had both the Republican and the Democratic heads of the top oversight committee coming out and saying that Flynn was the subject of a Pentagon probe. That's not going to go away, even though Sean Spicer comes out at the briefings and says, you know, hey, all of this was done under the Obama administration. His security clearance was done under Obama. He's not part of our administration anymore. This is not really an issue. I think, you know, that might be a little bit of wishful thinking.
Pete, in an interview with Reuters, President Trump said the United States possibly could be involved in a major confrontation with North Korea. Should something like that, a statement like that, worry Americans?
I think it's definitely a cause for worry. President Obama told President Trump, as the two were exchanging presidencies on January 20th, that was the big issue. Secretary of State Tillerson is before the UN Security Council at this very moment, outlining American policy and trying to line up international support on just that subject.
Okay, I've already been told to wrap up, but very quickly from both of you, let's go back to grade school. If you had to put a grade on President Trump's first 100 days, how would you grade him?
From Capitol Hill?
Not very high.
B?
C is average.
C? Ooh. I would say so.
You would say average?
We don't have any. We haven't
Some
passed
would
any
say
bills.
much lower. What about you, Pete?
The critics are saying F on foreign policy, but he does
As somebody who watches him, covers him on a daily basis.
He's making progress on the foreign policy front.
Bills take a long time.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's give the president some time to take care of that stuff. Thank you so much, Catherine, and thank you, Pete. We're going to take another break now, but when we come back, this is World Immunization Week. More on the international campaign to bring life-saving vaccines when we come back.